Every year, the American State Department releases a Trafficking in Persons report, which is described as the world's most comprehensive resource of governmental anti-human trafficking efforts. And this year, China was downgraded along with Russia and Uzbekistan to Tier 3, grouped along other countries such as Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Sudan, and Zimbabwe. Tier 3 is as low as it gets. The downgrade requires the United States to prepare sanctions against the offending countries, which could be tricky since many see the relationship between China, the U.S., and Russia as being in a very delicate state. The report states that China does not fully comply with the minimum standards for the elimination of human trafficking and over the years continued to perpetuate human trafficking in at least 320 state-run institutions. It continues by saying that trafficking is pronounced among China's internal migrant population, with estimates that exceed 236 million people. The report points out problems with forced labor, especially of children and people with mental disabilities. Now, China is one of the few countries in the world that operates state-run labor camps. It's a rather sensitive issue in China. For example, the Wikipedia page for Chinese labor camps are blocked by the Great Firewall. Now, a lot of the younger generation today do not know much about it, and the labor camps today do not seem to be as prominent as they were in the earlier days of the communist regime, when the camps were set up mostly for political dissidents. Now, earlier in the year, the head of the Chinese Political and Legal Committee of the Chinese Communist Party announced that China would stop using labor camps by the end of 2013. So it's possible that next year, China will see its rankings improve. But then again, does the rankings really matter? Well, let's take a look at some Weibo thoughts and opinions.
It seems to me that the American government needs to find another hobby. Why do they constantly release reports of other countries? What makes them the auditor of the world? I think they need to spend more time and energy to improve their own country and keep their opinions to themselves. I think China has made significant progress in tackling human trafficking. Weibo is a good example where people are able to pool their resources together to help track down trafficked children. I think China being downgraded is unfair and shows how little America knows of China. I don't know about the details of the report, but I think the report is right. Parents today are afraid to take their eyes off their kids in fear of them being kidnapped. I have seen so many stories of child kidnappings on Weibo, which suggest either the problem is getting worse or the problem has always been more serious than we had believed. Although a lot of people don't believe America has the moral authority to point fingers at other countries, I think someone has to do it. You simply can't count on a country, especially a non-democratic country, to monitor itself. It will always move between the extremes because there is no balance to the system. America is simply there to remind others that they need to be careful. If a country was democratic and the power rested with the people would be able to remind the government, but that simply isn't possible in countries like China.
As you can probably imagine, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs was not happy about the report and also made a statement that said the United States do not have the qualifications to make such judgments of other countries. Let who is without sin cast the first stone, and it seems the Chinese government believes the human trafficking report is a big stone targeted at the Chinese government. The annual human trafficking report is mandated by Congress, and this year 27 countries were downgraded and 14 were upgraded. The survey took into account a total of 188 countries. Now, what do Chinese Weibo users have to say about China being downgraded as a country with a serious case of human trafficking? Well, let's take a look at some of their comments and opinions.
I can predict quite accurately how the Chinese Foreign Ministry responds to these claims and reports. They always say the same things as if they just choose a reply randomly out of a number of templates. If China does not agree with the report, then let us present evidence to debunk the Americans. I think the Chinese Foreign Ministry should provide data and records to prove that China is not as bad as America claims. Instead of simply brushing off the critics, we need to give proof that would stuff their mouths. If you are a country that excels at protecting its own people, then obviously the report would not grade you poorly. China is not doing well in terms of stopping human trafficking. That is a fact, and you can see it on Weibo. The Chinese government should acknowledge that it has problems. It shouldn't deny what everyone can see in plain sight. Take responsibility for once. Why is China so hurt by the rankings? Who cares what the Americans say? Let's just put more effort into solving our trafficking problems and less time trying to deny American claims.
The Chinese government has expanded efforts in some areas to prevent trafficking in persons with assistance from international organizations and NGOs. High-level authorities, including those of the ministerial level, work to increase public awareness among groups most at risk. The Chinese central government reported that it changed local security officials' promotion criteria to include counter-trafficking work and launched initiatives to crack down on illegal activities by employment agencies that also operate as trafficking rings. The central government also issued a document clarifying government agency responsibilities in combating child labor and imposed obligations on government officials as part of an enlarged effort to combat child trafficking. However, like most policies in China, what the central government dictates is not always the same as what the local governments implement.